Hello everybody, Eternal Flame here, and welcome to the JJK 268 chapter review, and it's the finale. The Shinjuku Showdown is now over, as the chapter is named Finale. Now, I will say before I start this chapter, I am rather conflicted about it. I absolutely love the first half of the chapter, but it's the second half of the chapter that I am very conflicted on, so yeah. But I am very hyped to get into this chapter, so without further ado, let's get straight into the chapter of the finale. So the chapter starts out with Sukuna and Megumi facing against each other as Sukuna says, "Just how do you think you'll be able to go on? You had your body stolen by me. You murdered your own sister. You turned away the hands reaching out to you. Oh right, that brat you saved even ended up slaughtering thousands. Give it up. You can't live a proper life anymore. Just relax and leave it all to me." As Megumi is surrounded in a world of black, with Sukuna's mouths and eyes all around him, trying to force control back, trying to convince Megumi in order to give him back control. However, Megumi is able to notice that desperation. He can see that desperation clear as day on Sukuna. As Megumi then said, "Why do you sound so desperate? Is it because there's only one left? Only one more of your fingers? There's a special way to turn yourself into a cursed object, which means that if Itadori takes no care in tearing you from me here, you'll die. Plus, the resonance isn't all good news for you. If these 19 fingers disappear, that lone finger won't have enough pull to connect you soul to it. Even something like you fears death." As Sukuna's presence began to get smaller and smaller, shrinking down and down, as in that moment Sukuna was reminded of just how small of a presence he truly had. Sure, he had pushed Megumi down into darkness, but that had been ripped away. Megumi had regained the will to live, and Sukuna could no longer have a hold on his body. All of that control he had was gone. Everything that he had been working towards was ripped away from him thanks to the brat and everybody else's efforts. As he's returning to his truly insignificant form that he is, the form of a finger. However, it's not over quite yet, as Megumi explains that Sukuna's understanding of him was wrong. As Megumi says, "From the very start, I never intended to live a proper life. Sounds obvious, but there's tons more people in the world than just me. Just once more, I think I want to try living for someone else." And this opening right here is probably my favorite moment from the chapter itself, where it shows what Sukuna truly is, where it shows how small Sukuna is. Even though Sukuna thinks he's massive, even though Sukuna has so much power and is the strongest jujitsu sorcerer, he has no influence. He has been beaten, and his power has been amounted to nothing because he has no more power anymore. While he did manage to succeed in breaking Megumi's will, removing the person that he needed to live, Megumi just had to get a new person. No, new people who needed him. New people who he knew would need him and miss him if he were gone. Not just Yuji, but Nobara as well. Everybody was there fighting for Megumi, and now Megumi's will had returned to him, which has stripped Sukuna of all of the power that he had access to. Everybody here, all members of the cast, ended up stripping him down of all the power he had, and turning him back to what he truly is, a mummified finger from an ancient, long-gone era. And it's something I really love about this. Everybody's wills coming together in order to give Megumi back that will to live. It's a really nice part of the chapter that I absolutely love. This also kind of shows Sukuna in a desperate state that we have never seen Sukuna in before, and I absolutely love it. Of course, we always knew Sukuna was open to doing manipulation thanks to 214 when he tried to manipulate Hana. However, this is shown even more when he's trying to manipulate Megumi now. Manipulate his current state so he can get back control to also show the fear of death he has. Something that Megumi catches on to, that no matter how much Sukuna has tried to step away from humanity, prove he is not human, prove he doesn't need ideals, he still ultimately is human. He was never removed from humanity no matter how much he tries to act like he is. And not just every human, but every living being fears death. However, it's then we return to reality and we get to see just how massive Yuji's domain is, because it's actually towering over several buildings. And just to remind you, Mahito's domain expansion wasn't even bigger than a courtyard that Nanami and Yuji were fighting in. Dangon's domain expansion fit inside of a subway station, or at least its barrier did. And keep in mind as well, this is an extremely fatigued Yuji as well, thanks to all the black flashes he's landed, all the amount of times he needed to use reverse curse sneak to heal himself, as well as healing of his own blood, as Sukuna even called it out himself that Yuji is running on his last leg. So yeah, a really tired Yuji is able to produce a domain expansion like this, which is crazy. However, we see Yuji punch Sukuna out of Megumi, with Megumi himself being free, as Sukuna is trying to reach out for Megumi, trying to basically forcefully consume him, but it doesn't work. As Yuji begins to approach the little glob of Sukuna that is left, and he asks, "What's it gonna be, Sukuna? Release Fushiguro, return to my body once more, and I'll spare your life." After all, Yuji had already displayed the ability he is capable of destroying Sukuna's fingers, something that Megumi had acknowledged that he can destroy the soul within Sukuna's fingers, so Sukuna would know Yuji is capable of killing him. As Yuji tells Sukuna, "You are me. We were born into this world unconsciously shouldering curses. What sort of monster you turn into is entirely decided by your luck, and I had my gramps. Sukuna, let's try it one more time, living not by cursing someone, but by existing alongside them. Even if no one else will accept you, I'll live with you." And while this at first feels like a callback to when Yuji said, "I am you" to Mahito, this is actually very different and basically a parallel to that, because the two scenes had very different meanings. Where Yuji was saying, "I am you" to Mahito, he was accepting that him and Mahito were the same, that just as Mahito kills humans without any thought, Yuji will kill curses without any thought. However, back then, that wasn't Yuji trying to relate to Mahito, that was simply them both accepting their roles in reality, that Yuji would be the one to put down Mahito and any other curse that was like Mahito, because Mahito was never human. Mahito could never be a human because he just wasn't innately human like how Sukuna is innately human. That was Yuji showing his understanding in the world. However, now, Yuji is showing an understanding that Sukuna could have easily become him, just as he could have easily become Sukuna. After all, Sukuna and Yuji are nearly the same person. They have the same level of willpower, the same level of power itself and potential, but the one difference that existed between Yuji and Sukuna was that Yuji had someone to guide him on the path to become better, which was his grandfather. Without his grandfather, he could have very easily just become another Sukuna, which was what happened with Sukuna. Sukuna had no one to guide him in his life. Sukuna was alone in a world with power, and that power was all he needed to satisfy himself, because he could never understand what it would be like to be good because he had no one who could guide him. However, now Yuji is trying to give Sukuna one more chance to understand life with a good person to guide him and guide him on the right path, to allow Sukuna to truly embrace the meaning of life and why life has such value. Because while Sukuna understands it, he doesn't embrace the value of it, and that's what Yuji is trying to do. Give him that chance to embrace it. Something that he never got in his first life, but now he can get. However, Sukuna chooses to deny Yuji this, as Sukuna tells him, "I'm impressed you take this farce so far, Itadori Yuji. Don't underestimate me. I'm a curse." And in my opinion, this is Sukuna adamantly refusing Yuji's second chance. He doesn't want to embrace the value of life. He doesn't want to change who he is. He accepts who he is, and he refuses to give Yuji that chance to live with him again, because there'd be nothing else for him that would be a greater torture. But most of all, by accepting Yuji's ideology, he would have to live with the fact that he accepted that Yuji had an ideology even stronger than himself, something that adamantly would annoy Sukuna. And I think for that reason, I think just Sukuna is dead. I think Sukuna is gone and he has no final move left in this world. Because for me, I feel like Sukuna would rather die than accept that Yuji's ideology was right. Now, I do plan to make a much bigger video going over the narrative between Yuji, Sukuna, and Megumi, because that is very important for the entire story of Jujutsu Kaisen. But yeah, I think for those reasons that Sukuna is just gone, that he's never going to show up again, I think he basically made the final finger just die as well, so there just wasn't a chance and he was able to move on, because he would refuse to live in a world with Yuji. However, there is one more interesting part of this discussion that I want to hint on, which is the fact that Sukuna calls himself a curse. I don't actually think that Sukuna is a curse, and I think this is just Sukuna really trying his best to deny himself as human. Mainly because this is actually hinted back to something we saw in the Sukuna versus Jogo battle, where Sukuna questions why Jogo would want to ever become human. Why would he want to become like human beings? I think this was Sukuna showing that he actually thinks curses are just straight up superior to humans, which does make a lot of sense for how Sukuna is, considering he calls himself the King of Curses, considering he's been called throughout of history of the King of Curses, and more relatable to a curse than a human. So I think this is Sukuna's final attempt to reject his humanity and just die as a curse. And now up next we pan over to Urame versus Hikari, and I'm not going to focus on this too long or even say their entire conversation, mainly because to sum up their entire conversation, it's just Urame telling him that the only reason they managed to win is because Sukuna was in an incarnated body, they had luck on their side, they were able to narrowly escape death because they were born 1,000 years too late, and just Urame sees no more purpose in living because their purpose was Sukuna, and if Sukuna's gone, they have no purpose in staying alive. And now you might be wondering, why am I not giving this part that much effort? And that's for one main reason. Gege himself didn't really care about this fight. Like, it just happened and it kind of got off screen. Even though it had a lot of potential, it just got off screen, and this is where we get into parts of the chapter that I don't like. This part especially, like, I get Urame choosing to end their life. This is the perfect ending for them. However, it's kind of a similar problem that I have with Kenjaku, but much worse for Urame than Kenjaku, which is we don't see enough of Urame for this to really hit for me at all. Like, we get to see only a few panels of their fight. We don't really get to see any reason of why Urame is just so dedicated to Sukuna. So because of the fact that Gege clearly doesn't care that much about this conclusion, I'm not going to give it that much care either, mainly because there's not much I can really talk about, because of the fact we don't really know that much about Urame or Hikari. As much as I would love to go much more in depth with that, we don't know that much, especially about Urame, so all this feels just kind of empty to me. It's then we return to see Megumi awake in a bed, as Yuji does the Opapi prank with Nobara. However, Megumi kinda has to spoil their fun because he already knew that Nobara was back because he was there for the resonance hit inside of Sukuna's body. Nobara then comments on the fact that they had a pretty lackluster reaction to Nobara's return, as Megumi tells them, "I already knew," and Yuji does say that they cried a bit inside of the domain, with Nobara commenting that this had to be a in-person type thing. Which it is nice to finally be able to get to see all three of them in their dynamic again, because we don't really get to see their dynamic that often, but the few moments that we do get to see their dynamic, I honestly find it really nice. So, yeah. However, it's then Yuji ends up passing them both gojo letters. In this moment, we also see that all of Yuji's fingers are healed as well. Now, for Nobara, it's information on how her mom is doing and where her mom even is. And I'm gonna be real with you, this is also another part of this chapter that just feels really empty to me. Now, of course, I think it is intended to feel a little bit empty, mainly because Nobara herself also doesn't care about that information, so it does make sense, but I'm gonna be real with you guys, I didn't even know Nobara's mom was missing for the most part of her life. I kinda forgot about that, I'll be honest. So like, well, yes, it was intended to feel empty, it kind of just brings something back to my mind, which is the fact that we barely have any moments of these guys other than like Yuji himself going deep into his character. We don't really get that many moments of like Nobara interacting with her past or Nobara talking about her past or just seeing anything like that. I don't want more of it, but like, I just don't think this letter should be here for Nobara. I would have preferred if it was something else. Like, yeah, I get it was supposed to feel empty, but there was another really easy way to just do this instead. Remember, in Nobara's flashback, there was one of her friends that she wanted to meet with again that she never thought she would see again because she had no idea where they were. Now, I'm saying her friends because I also forgot what their name was, and that's how little we really know about them because we know Nobara wants to see them again. Editing me will probably put their name up, but this really hones in on the point that Gege didn't really flesh out them that much. I think it would have been better if Gojo just gave them information on their friend instead. And then it's Megumi's letter as well, which I kind of liked because it makes a lot of sense for Megumi's character since he never really cared about his dad, so it makes sense that Gojo could actually play off the fact that he wrote in a letter, "Hey, I killed your dad, Sawi," and actually be able to play that off as a joke. Now, like, I'm not mad about that one at all, like, I find this very, very funny, but at the same time, like, meh. Granted, I wasn't expecting too much. I don't know what I really was expecting with Megumi learning about, like, his dad being Toji. But at the same time, I was expecting more than a joke. I don't know. I'm not too mad about this one in comparison to the Nobara thing. Like, I think this is just a funny joke, so, like, it's oh well for me, unlike the Nobara thing, which actually just makes me feel empty. As Gege is making sure to make good on all his interviews. Before it is then, we see all the characters head over to Yuta Akotsu in order to save him, as we see all the characters that contributed something to the battle other than that disgusting abomination of a creature that should have been hit with a black flash, as they all are going over to Yuta Akotsu. And that is where the chapter ends. We have no idea what's going to happen, but we are on break week. Now, I don't think much is going to come out of this. I think this is just going to end up being a panel of Maki punching Yuta in the head for taking Gojo's body, or at least that's what I see being the most likely thing to happen here. Now overall, this chapter, like I said in the intro, is a mixed bag for me. If you guys cannot tell, I absolutely love the beginning parts of this chapter. Yuji and Sukuna's confrontation with each other, with Yuji's final bit of development that he had gained, as well as Megumi himself and Megumi finally taking Sukuna out from his body. I love that part, but everything else in this chapter kind of just feels empty to me. That's at least my opinion on it, but I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below about this chapter. Do you guys have the same opinion? Do you guys think it's the opposite? Do you guys think more people should have died, or do you guys think that less people should have died? I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm going to see y'all later. Peace out. Have a good day.